God was about to kill Moses, and his wife grabbed a flint knife and did something desperate. Let me tell you about the woman who saved Moses' life that nobody talks about. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to tell you about one of the most mysterious and shocking stories in the Bible. It's about Zipporah, Moses' wife, and the night she saved his life. Most people have never heard this story because it's strange, uncomfortable, and raises difficult questions, but it reveals something powerful about faith, obedience, and the courage of a woman who refused to let her husband die. Let me take you through what happened. To understand this story, we need to know who Zipporah was. Moses had fled Egypt after killing an Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew slave. Pharaoh wanted to execute Moses, so he ran to the land of Midian. He sat down by a well, exhausted and alone. That's where he met Zipporah. She came to the well with her 6 sisters to water their father's flocks. Some shepherds tried to drive them away, but Moses stood up and defended them. Then he watered their flocks for them. When the sisters returned home, their father-in-law, also called Jethro, asked why they were back so early. They said, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." Jethro was impressed and invited Moses to stay with them. Moses agreed and ended up living with Jethro's family. Eventually, Jethro gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. Zipporah's name means bird, and she came from a Midianite priest family. She wasn't an Israelite. She came from a different culture with different customs. This becomes important later. Zipporah and Moses had 2 sons. The first was named Gershom, which means stranger there, because Moses said, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." The second son was named Eliezer, which means my God is helper. 4 years, Moses lived a quiet life as a shepherd in Midian. He had left his past in Egypt behind. He had a wife, children, and a peaceful existence. But then God appeared to him in the burning bush. God called Moses to go back to Egypt and demand that Pharaoh let the Israelites go. Moses was reluctant, but eventually he agreed. He took his wife Zipporah and his sons and started back to Egypt. And that's when something terrifying happened. The Bible says, at a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him. Read that again. God was about to kill Moses, the man he had just called to deliver Israel. The man he spoke to from the burning bush. God was about to end his life. Why? The text doesn't spell it out clearly, but the context gives us the answer. Moses had failed to circumcise his son. Circumcision was the sign of God's covenant with Abraham and his descendants. Every male child was supposed to be circumcised on the 8th day. This wasn't optional. It was the physical mark of belonging to God's people. But Moses hadn't done it. Why not? We can only speculate, but it seems likely that Zipporah opposed it. Circumcision wasn't a Midianite custom. She came from a different culture. The idea of cutting her infant son probably seemed barbaric to her. And Moses, perhaps to keep peace in his marriage, didn't insist. He let it slide. But now, as Moses was heading back to Egypt to lead God's people, this disobedience became a crisis. How could Moses call Pharaoh to obey God when he himself wasn't obeying God in his own home? How could he lead the Israelites in covenant faithfulness when he hadn't even circumcised his own son? God took this seriously. So seriously that he was prepared to kill Moses. This shows us something important about God. He doesn't compromise on obedience, especially for leaders. Moses was about to represent God to Pharaoh and 2 million of Israelites. If he couldn't obey in something as fundamental as the covenant sign, he wasn't fit to lead. So God confronted Moses at the lodging place. The text suggests Moses became deathly ill. He was incapacitated, possibly unconscious, maybe writhing in pain. He was dying, and Zipporah realized what was happening. Somehow, she understood that this was about the circumcision. Maybe Moses had told her before about God's covenant. Maybe in his delirium he cried out about it. or maybe God revealed it to her directly. But Zipporah knew what needed to be done, and she didn't hesitate. She took a flint knife and cut off her son's foreskin. Imagine this scene: a terrified wife, her husband dying before her eyes, taking a sharp stone and performing a surgical procedure on her child. This would have been traumatic, blood everywhere, the child screaming. Moses possibly unconscious or in agony, but Zipporah did it. Then she did something even more mysterious. She touched Moses' feet with the foreskin. Some scholars think feet is a euphemism for genitals. Others think she literally touched his feet. Either way, it was a symbolic act. She was applying the blood of circumcision to Moses, and she said, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." This phrase has puzzled interpreters for centuries. What did she mean? Some think she was angry, calling Moses a bridegroom of blood, because this covenant of blood had put her family through trauma. Others think she was declaring that the covenant obligation was now fulfilled through this act of bloodshed. The phrase could mean, "You are my husband through this blood covenant," or it could mean, "You have become a husband of blood to me through this terrible necessity." We may never know exactly what she meant, but what we do know is this: her action worked. The Bible says, "So the Lord let him alone. God relented. Moses' life was spared." Because Zipporah acted quickly and decisively, Moses survived. She saved his life. Without Zipporah's courage and quick action, there would have been no Exodus from Egypt, no parting of the Red Sea, no 10 Commandments, no Moses leading Israel through the wilderness. The entire story of the Exodus depended on this moment. And it was a woman, a foreign woman, who made it possible. But here's what often gets overlooked: Zipporah paid a price for this. Shortly after this incident, Moses sent Zipporah and their sons back to her father Jethro. The Bible doesn't explain why, but the timing suggests the trauma of this event may have created a rift. Zipporah had just performed a painful procedure on her child to save her husband's life. She had done something that went against her own cultural sensibilities. And then Moses sent her away. She didn't reunite with Moses until much later, after the Exodus had already begun. Jethro brought Zipporah and the boys back to Moses in the wilderness. This suggests that for a significant time, Zipporah was separated from her husband. She made a sacrifice, saved his life, and then was sent away. That's heartbreaking, but it also shows her character. She did what needed to be done, even though it cost her. So what do we learn from Zipporah's story? First, obedience to God cannot be negotiated away. Moses tried to compromise, probably to keep peace at home. But God doesn't accept compromise on covenant faithfulness. Second, sometimes doing the right thing is painful and traumatic. Zipporah didn't want to circumcise her son. It went against everything she knew. But when her husband's life was at stake, she did it anyway. Third, women play crucial roles in God's story. Without Zipporah, there's no Moses. Without Moses, there's no Exodus. God used this Midianite woman to preserve his chosen leader. Fourth, God takes covenant seriously. The sign of the covenant mattered to God. It wasn't just a ritual. It was a mark of belonging, of commitment, of identity. Moses' failure to circumcise his son was a failure to identify his family with God's people. Finally, quick obedience can save lives. Zipporah didn't hesitate or debate. She saw the crisis and acted immediately. Her swift obedience saved Moses. Zipporah is one of the unsung heroes of the Bible. She doesn't get much attention, but without her courage on that terrible night, the Exodus never would have happened. She saved Moses, and in doing so, she helped save Israel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.